at Antigua. Oh, well.
Well, here at the 12 o'clock position, we have our red Zerg player from MVP. It is DongRaeGu. And his opponent tying things up last game. At the 9 o'clock position, our blue Terran player from Slayers, it's MMA.
That's right. So I take back what I said earlier. This is a map that is absolutely great for MVP.DongRaeGu. He's going to be able to use that large distance to get, a good economy going. MMA, he doesn't really have the option of being all that aggressive early on unless he wants to go for something really early, very cheesy. Doesn't look like he's going to do that if he would have sent out an SCV already. So we're just going to have what is probably going to be just a straight up game.
Yeah, and we'll see if MMA is going to be able to pull this off. Don't forget, in the last two games, he proxied barracks in some regard, or tried to in the last one. Didn't end up working out all that well for him. And think of that, too. How crazy was that? MMA was set back so far. Had his barracks denied by the drones right away at the beginning of the game. Was still able to find a way to hold that Roach Rush with a 2-port Banshee and end up winning the game.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk a little bit, too, about, where MMA is at right now in his StarCraft 2 career. 2011 was a great year for him. He won the Blizzard World Championships. He won the GSL one season as well. 2012 hasn't been quite as good of a year just yet. We're halfway done. MMA doesn't really have any huge championships just yet.
He won Iron Squid,
but
never
mind. He totally did win Iron Squid. Yeah, okay, so never mind. He's won a big tournament. But, he hasn't been quite as dominant overall in the scene as he was last year.
Right, but there was a time for about 4 or 5 months when MMA was considered the best player in the world.
Yeah, 2011, absolutely.
Wasn't even close. After he took out MVP, everyone was like, okay, yeah, this guy's really good. And then he went on to win everything over the course of a couple of months. And then he tends to go in cycles, though. Faded off for a long time. He won Iron Squid a couple of months ago, though, like I said. And then after that, kind of faded back off again. He's in Code A, and we'll see if this can be kind of start of a resurgence for him.
Yeah, I mean, a win against DongRaeGu here would be absolutely huge in silencing people that say MMA may be in a bit of a slump right now. I personally think those people are totally wrong, but if they are still thinking it, I think they're probably going to be proven differently after this game. We'll see. I mean, DRG is still such a deadly opponent, though.
And look at this. Once again, going for a 3-hatch before pool, so he's going to go for a very, very aggressive build. Now, I said this before, that this was kind of analogous to a almost that Protoss style against Terran, where you go for 3 Nexuses and then 8 gates real quick and then just move super, super aggressive. It kind of feels like that to me, because you have the option of hitting a super strong Roach Zergling attack, but it's not quite that 3 base max out in 11 minutes. It hits a little bit quicker than that.
Well, what we've seen a lot of Zerg players do, including DRG, out of this type of opening, is going for a very aggressive Roach Ling Baneling all-in then off of 3 bases. So he may choose to do something different. He may choose to just play kind of a macro game. But on a map like Atlantis Spaceship, I feel like the temptation is really there, just because there's a lot of paths you can take your units down, try to sneak past your opponent, and try to get in that position to hit them when they're not expecting it with an all-in like that.
And this is very cool stuff, too. MMA, I mean, look how much mining time he's denying just by running away with a Marine. This is 3 drones that are completely pulled off the line. They'll turn around as soon as they do. MMA has the option to move back in and continue to pull a couple more off the line. So,
yeah, and he will.
All right.
I mean, that pressure that you can put on, even with those first couple Marines and SCVs, is so nice. I mean, every little tiny advantage you can get at the highest level of StarCraft 2, which is what we're seeing today, really does count.
And a few Zerglings out to take map control for DongRaeGu, cut off those reinforcements. As we can see, though, MMA decided to go up. He went single gas after the 1-Rax gasless FE into a next command center and then a factory slightly after that, or about the same time, I guess I should say. So MMA going for a very, very aggressive economic build, and we'll see if DongRaeGu is able to punish that.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he's already gone for an aggressive economic build himself, too, so that may not be the plan, really. Getting 2 gas now, so he is going to be going into, at the very least, Zergling speed. It depends on how much he really wants to do with it. Can go for a quick lair as well out of this, but, again, that all-in that I talked about earlier, the Roachling Baneling all-in has just been so popular right now in ZVT, especially on maps like this, after going for that 3 hatchery build. I feel like it's a big temptation for DRG to go for something like that, so MMA, above all else, is going to have to be really diligent with the scouting and be ready.
All right, well, first couple of queens are coming up. I'm sorry, 2 are out, 2 more on the way, I should say. So he's going to be on a total of 4 now. The last time he did this, he ended up going up to a total of about 7. So he had quite a few on the field, and we'll see if he ends up powering to that amount once again. So DongRaeGu on double gas. Zergling speed is on the way. No hint of his future tech quite yet, though.
Yep, we'll see. Just kind of getting the standard here. And how many does he have on gas right now? Does he still have 3 on each geyser? And yes, he does. Okay, so still continuing to do that. Normally you wouldn't pull him off at this point. You can still make enough drones off of 3 bases to handle this. But look at this, MMA. Oh, catching a couple drones transferring, and he does pick off 1.
Yeah, not too bad there. A little bit of free damage. 3 kills in total for the Hellions. A couple of Zerglings went down there. Yeah, definitely. As we can see, though, DongRaeGu is a little bit supply blocked there, finally finishing up another Overlord, but he's going to decide to drop down a couple of drones, make some structures here, and 2 evolution chambers for now, but that's about all.
Yep, both players going for a lot of upgrades. I like the choice to get Banshees by Slayers MMA. Right now, I feel like, oh, nice save with that drone on the extractor, but right now, Hellion Banshee is probably one of the best things to do damage early. Oh, but not if you lose your Hellions. It generally doesn't work quite as well.
And there is 1 Banshee
Only
out,
1
so
Banshee, okay.
Yeah, it's going to poke around. That's totally acceptable. You can sometimes get an opponent to really overreact to it. In any case, MMA is going to be sitting on 4 barracks now. Did just finish up a reactor on this factory that's probably going to swap over here in just a second. Yeah, that Starport will take advantage of that here soon. No, actually a 5th barracks.
Yep, he's going to want to go ahead and get a siege tank production going as well as going into that really, really heavy marine production that we've seen. Now, DRG doing the same thing that we've seen in other games, getting the Baneling Nest and the upgrades very quickly for his ground units. That Banshee not able to really get in there and do any damage. DRG is ready with some queens, but at least MMA has forced DRG to have to make some spore crawlers, and
he made a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
6 of them. So I mean, this Banshee's paid for itself just by. Think of it this way: it doesn't have a kill, but it just killed 6 drones.
Yeah, I mean, it made those drones turn into spore crawlers, which essentially renders them, rather useless right now for DRG, especially because MMA, he only made 1 Banshee. It's not like he's planning on really pursuing this. So yeah, that's right. That is about 6 kills, not to mention it costed 600 minerals for DRG to make those spore crawlers. So you can just see, just by showing a certain unit, causing your opponent to react in the way that you want them to can cause a lot of damage just by doing that as well.
And that was so smart because don't forget, DRG was at a big advantage last game, then lost a double port Banshee, so he has to be able to prepare for this. Yeah. He tries to poke in at the front, but unfortunately MMA just has too much of position. He's going to be able to deal with that. MMA just really powering ahead on infrastructure at the moment, though. This Viking not getting a lot done because there's not a lot of Overlords to pick off, if I'm honest. 1 down at the 6 o'clock position, 1 over at the 9 o'clock position, but that's about all.
Yeah, I mean, and DRG's got a pretty good idea about what his opponent is going for. MMA dropping, that's only going to confirm it, and DRG coming in right now. Good positioning for those Marines, so MMA does have to pick up and get away, but he did, kill a good amount of Zerglings with it. Spire on the way, though, for MVP.DongRaeGu, and once those Mutalisks hit, it's going to be pretty difficult for MMA to continue to do a lot of significant damage with that Marine drop.
DRG investing in 2-2 for the ground upgrades as well. Going to be so useful as he moves on throughout the game, of course, whether he decides to move into Ultralisks or Broodlords eventually. They're going to be great for both. So he will have enough, though, for about 10 to 12 Mutas, depending on what other upgrades he decides to get whenever this does hit. So that's going to be quite a concern for MMA.
Yeah, absolutely. Those Marines not too concerned because the Zerglings just run right past. Kind of a shooting gallery thing going on there. DRG trying to counterattack at the 3rd base. MMA needs to have some units here defending, and he does have a good amount of Marines.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing done by DRG.
Almost a total contrast to what we saw in the first 4 games between these guys, where no matter what DRG did, MMA wasn't prepared for it. He didn't have units in position. But now MMA is just so ready for everything that DRG is doing.
Yeah, he's done a really, really good job of adapting. I mean, he's been playing more defensively. He's been ready for those speedling counterattacks that he's taken damage from before. Oh, but is he going to be ready for this? Wow. A lot of Banelings on the way for MVP.DongRaeGu. Wants to take out as many Marines as he can before the Mutalisks come in. That's kind of the big key here. So we'll see how successful it is.
Well, he does have 1 tank up, but that one's going to need to be sieged up very, very soon here because all those Banelings are finished. Drom's still sitting here in the middle, scouting a little bit, looking for a 4th base, but the 4th base is being taken down at the bottom right-hand corner of the map, and DongRaeGu just about to move in with a ton of Banelings.
Yeah, man, this is a big deal. MMA's got some siege tanks in a pretty good position, though. So we'll see how it works. Banshee going after a couple of those. Oh, but getting taken out by the Mutas. Here comes DRG.
And DRG split his Zerglings before he went into that engagement. That was very, very cool. It drew a lot of fire from those units, and that is actually able to give him the advantage that he needs to take out a lot of the tanks. Every one of the tanks went down. Now it's just Marines left over, and the second round of Banelings may be too much for MMA.
Yeah, well, DRG's putting a lot of resources into it. He needs to absolutely kill this third base to make it worthwhile, and MMA has a lot of Marines out. He's got a decent chance of defending against this, but it's all going to come down to MMA's unit control and DRG's Baneling control. One Marine scouts it coming. MMA needs to react right now. Will he be able to hold this?
He does. Oh my God, that Sea just took out 8 Banelings. That was incredible. Whoa. And MMA has enough left over to repel DRG.
Yeah, that was huge. DRG put a lot into that attack. Didn't end up doing too much with it. He's got a few more units coming down here, but those are not going to do a whole lot.
No, and it does pick up on a drop, though, which is nice. DRG needs to pull back, though. What he has going for him, though, is that he is sitting on 4 bases, moving over to a 5th.
Yeah.
MMA is finishing up his 4th, though. Excuse me, and it looks like he intends to take it over where the Rich Vespian Geyser is. So,
you know,
both these players playing a very economic game, but man, great holds there from MMA.
Traditionally, in games between these two players, MMA, you know, they will go a lot like this. MMA will hold a very strong attack from DRG and then will follow that up with strong poking with parts of his army and drop play to try to take out some of the satellite expansions that DRG has been building in the meantime. So I think that's the phase of the game that we're going to see our Terran players start to move into right now, and DRG needs to be aware of this. He needs to defend, and there's the first drop from MMA. He's also poking on the right side of the map with his army as well.
And Queen is going to bite the dust if nothing else. This drop is going to be dealt with very, very efficiently.
Dies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
DongRaeGu didn't really lose anything other than a couple of Zerglings there. So
not really.
MMA continuing to move up. I think probably a little surprised not to see any base here, but he hasn't picked up on what's down at the bottom right hand. Oh, he has actually.
He knows. Yeah, he saw it, and he's making a beeline right for that bottom right base. And there is nothing that DRG can do to save this. He's just going to go ahead and have to be okay with losing this base.
Yes, he is, and looks like he will be able to pick off the drop over at the top, so some sort of consolation for him. But of course, MMA, even after losing that, is still almost maxed out.
That's right. Well, consolation prize doesn't feel too good if you lose the whole game, but DRG right now holding off MMA all right. I mean, he is still up 1 base. He does still have that little economic advantage. His Hive Tech did just finish, so he can go for the Broodlords fairly soon, or Ultras, depending on what he wants to do.
Well, let's see here now, as DongRaeGu does have very nice creep spread through this middle here, so it's going to be very difficult for MMA to be able to get anything done there. He's going to have to slowly move up and scan forward. Oh, the Banelings moving forward, but they don't really do any damage at all.
Fire. Yeah, absolutely. And here's the situation right now that DRG finds himself in. He's going for that tier 3 tech. He's going for Ultralisk, but he's going to need to just keep making regular units just to stay alive against MMA. So unless MMA makes a big mistake here, DRG's going to have a hard time getting a lot of that high tier tech out.
And it looks like DRG may be thinking about some sort of a counter attack, but MMA had a couple of Marines in position down there, so he should be able to pick up on this. Unfortunately for MMA, he doesn't really have anything in position to defend. He's starting to pull his forces back, and oh wow, those Mutalisks got to watch out, otherwise they'll die very quickly.
Yeah, a little bit. MMA wants to be aggressive, but you can tell he's not quite sure what DongRaeGu's going for right now. He's making 2 starports, which he doesn't really need. There's no Broodlords, there's no Greater Spire just yet, so this is a little bit premature by MMA, and oh, that's a lot of Zerglings from DRG.
It is, but MMA is able to pull the rest of his forces back in time. We'll see if he's able to hold it. Yes, he is. A lot of the Mutalisks go down as well. His orbital command is going to fall. But there's a lot of Banelings left over that don't really have any targets.
Yeah, MMA does still have a planetary building up at that base with the Rich Vespian Geyser. Also has an extra orbital command. He can always fly down to that 3rd base, and he is moving out again with a very strong force. Look at that MMA 20 supply ahead, and he's taking out the 4th base of DRG. DRG is going to be down to essentially just 1.5 mining bases.
Oh, there it goes, and MMA
barely
moving through the middle of the map now. First 5 Ultras coming up. Chitinous Blading and +3 attacks are on the way, but it is still going to take a lot to break the siege line from MMA.
What? Oh, man, that's a lot of siege tanks. What's the infestor count right now for DRG? It is
0.
Oh, man, that is going to make the Ultralisks much less effective. DRG in dire straits here, man. He's got to get the perfect engagement to win this fight.
We'll see if he can. That's a lot of tanks for MMA, but they are pretty grouped up now. We'll see if he sieges up in time, and it looks like he will going to start dropping inside of the main as well. A few Mutalisks trying to take this out. Those Marines can stim up, though, and those Mutalisks, wow, they're going to pay the price for taking out that drop.
Well, you know what? MMA is moving out right now, but he knew he was going to be vulnerable to a flank. Oh, leaving a few siege tanks behind. That doesn't help a lot.
He tried the tanks were starting to point towards the banelings, but he didn't have another shot available, unfortunately, to target fire a few of those out.
Yep, that's right. So this is a good decision, though, by MMA to pull back. He knew that he was in a position where his opponent could probably flank him. If your opponent surrounds you in ZVT, very good chance you're going to lose that army. So MMA doing the smart thing, playing it safe, but DRG looking like he's going to want to attack, and MMA is not sieged up. He's not quite ready for this, but oh man, it's going to be close.
Yes, it is. Banelings starting to roll through. A lot of the Marines are actually down. More reinforcements are coming around for the side. Force Slayers MMA. He picks up a couple of his units, drops them out of position. The Ultralisks, though, have not taken that much damage. DongRaeGu does have a little bit of a supply advantage, but MMA didn't really lose anything of substance there.
I mean, the thing is DRG did kind of win that fight. I mean, he did get a good engagement, caught MMA off guard, but he needs to kind of secure those bases that he's been putting off. DRG needs to make sure that his economy is in order before really becoming aggressive. He spent a lot of money on these Ultras, and if MMA is able to take them out efficiently, it's going to be tough for DRG to remake a strong army.
Yes, it is, and the Ultras trying to swing around the side, but unfortunately they were greeted by a couple of siege tanks. MMA was well in position to deal with that. Adding on some Banshees as well, which I think is a nice touch at this stage in the late game.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's going to force fungal growths to be used on those rather than Marines. It's going to be something that MMA can pick off some Ultralisks and other units with, potentially maybe take out some morphing Banelings later in the game. This game's still very close here. DRG now with the supply lead. MMA forced to be a little bit more defensive, but again, it all comes down to those big engagements. If MMA can win a big fight against what DRG has right now, DRG won't really be ready quite yet to reproduce those units.
MMA dropping again, but did fly right past an Overlord, so there's good possibility DRG picked up on it. He's starting to send some units back a little bit, just the Mutalisks, it appears, so he does know of its presence, morphing in a couple of Banelings just to make sure he doesn't take too much damage.
Yeah, and that's going to be plenty to handle this drop. MMA is going to have to lift off again right away. Probably going to lose the medevac and the Marines, poking again at this base, but DRG responding in kind. You know, traditionally, like we said, it has been the drop play from MMA at different locations that's got him the edge in these situations. Oh, not sieged up again. Fungal growth on a lot of stuff, and DRG may have just caught MMA in the best position he could have hoped for.
Yeah, those Ultralisks being very, very hardy here. A few units out of position for MMA. I don't know the rest of his bio units where he had a ton of Marauders being constructed. I know not all of them were actually in that engagement. Oh, they're just all sitting back at home.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like MMA has lost two very key engagements here in this later part of the game. DRG has gotten that breathing room that he wanted and now is in a great spot. He's making his greater spy right now. He's going to have the ability to produce Broodlords very, very soon here. MMA, you know, he was making those starports early on. He had to cancel those because of the attack. He's making Marauders now, and Marauders are not going to be very helpful against Broodlords, so DRG may be able to use this tech switch to win the game.
Very nice split there as MMA was able to save a few of those units, but may lose the medevac, so all may have been for naught. But here comes DongRaeGu. Oh, he moves into a position that MMA had prepared for him, lost one of the Ultralisks, another one almost went down as well.
Yeah, I had to be a little bit careful with this. DRG can't afford to get sloppy right now. He needs to make sure that he stays unsloppy, I guess you could say. Because here's the thing, I mean, he wants to make a lot of Broodlords. He can't use his army and then lose a bunch of it and then make Broodlords and stay safe at the same time. So right now, DRG has to figure out the appropriate amount of units to sacrifice to give himself room to create some Broodlords, while at the same time not sacrificing too many units to give MMA an advantage where he can push back and do some damage.
And the Banshees continue to be produced, and it's a good thing now that MMA has those starports in position because he will need to switch over to a lot of Vikings very, very soon here. Both players are maxed out once again. DongRaeGu is starting to accumulate some resources, but MMA just taking his fifth up in the top left-hand corner.
Yep, that's right. So more bases being taken by a Terran player. DRG, again, with all those Ultralisks, can't really attack into MMA that effectively. And MMA is maxed out again. I mean, even with 6 Broodlords on the way, he's not in the worst spot. The big thing is that MMA needs units to handle those Broodlords, and he really does not have anything right now aside from some Marines.
Oh, and there you go. You were talking about dropping the energy down from those Infestors, and that allowed the Siege Tanks to pick one of those units out of there as well. So Banshee certainly serving its purpose. A few Ultralisks getting a little bit forward there. Don't take out much and take some damage in return.
Yeah, both Both players maxed out at 200 supply. It's going to come down to the drops, the unit positioning, and the fights. An Ultralisk getting taken out by this drop. Not bad. That's pretty efficient. Gets fungled by the Infestor, but not going to be able to follow up and kill that medevac. And MMA is pushing.
Yes, he is. He is maxed, though, and does he have any Vikings on the field? No, he does not. So any supply he loses will probably be dedicated over to those in just a bit. MMA has to fall back, though, from this attack over at the fourth. Just simply cannot do that much damage there. Nice job. Look at this little Infestor hit squad here. Picking off a couple of those. Going after Queen now, though. Could get a couple Infestors. No, does not.
Using up a lot of the energy on those Infestors. Not as much as he would have wanted to. And now that the Broodlords are out, MMA needing to make a run for it. He has nothing that can handle this. DRG chasing MMA across the map right now. He turns and sieges up, gets the high ground there, but will it be enough?
The Ultralists are melting pretty quickly, but the Banelings connect quite a few of the forces as well. How many Marines are left over here? Not a ton, and I don't know if they're going to be able to make any ground against those Broodlords.
MMA not making Vikings, even though he knows the Broodlords are out on the map. MMA needs to respond to this. He's counting on just Marines. And I don't know if he's got enough.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be almost pure bio here. So now DongRaeGu has taken about a 40 supply advantage, and MMA is being forced back slowly but surely. But of course, those Broodlords are very, very slow. They're starting to siege up the space on the left-hand side, which is not a planetary fortress. It's in fact the main that was floated over to the fourth.
That's right. Well, DRG on the verge of elimination, as is MMA rather. And I don't know, man. One Viking being made right now for MMA. It's looking pretty tense for our Terran player at the moment.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, I mean, those SCVs getting taken out as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately that base is completely denied. DongRaeGu establishing himself a nice lead there. MMA dropping at the same time, trying to take out this hatchery off to the right. But is it going to be enough? These Ultralists are very, very low, but I don't know what MMA has to combat these Broodlords.
Well, MMA has enough medevacs out that he can kind of heal through the fungal growths, but he really needs Vikings to handle this as well. So many Banelings too from DRG that MMA can't really reposition efficiently, and here comes DongRaeGu. This could be the victory push.
Let's find out. The tanks not really able to target fire out many of the Banelings. MMA sitting there and just watching everything die. He's down to about he's down 60 supply to his opponent at the moment. DongRaeGu continuing to run through, and he is starting to siege up this production facility.
Ultralisks everywhere, still doing tons of damage to MMA. The Broodlords sieging from afar. MMA nearly down to 100 supply right now, and DRG makes it a GG.
GG! And DongRaeGu is going to go back into the grand finals to rematch against Liquid Hero.